All right, so let's quickly get into Excel charts. And this is a very, very interesting topic which I would want to talk about. And I want also you to pay your full attention to this chapter of the lesson. Now, there's what we call Excel charts. Now, generally, we have what is called charts or graphs. Does anyone chart or graph? All right, so these are graphical representation of our data. So in Excel, Excel has made it so powerful that we have different ways to manipulate and work with data. And then in front of us here, we have some possibilities that you can, use Excel to achieve. Right. Now, what are charts? In Excel, Excel charts are graphical representations of data which is created using Microsoft Excel. Right. So they are used to visually present and analyze data, making it easier for users to understand trend. Please take note. Making it easier for users to understand trends, patterns, and relationships within the data. Now, as a data analyst, you come across different data which will require that you transform what is written there, those values, those numbers, those columns and rows, for you to transform it into into visually, appealing representation. All right, such that you can be able to communicate with maybe stakeholders of companies. All right, we are going to be looking at some of the different types of charts we have in Microsoft Excel. As we said before, data usually come in an unclean state. So it's your duty as a data analyst to clean this data, to transform the data to useful insight, which we usually use to make business decisions. And as a communicator, because these are some of the soft skills you need to have as a data analyst, you should also be able to, present this data, as I said before, in a way that people can actually look at it without looking at numbers. So just looking at the pictures, they can actually tell what is going on. All right. So we have the different types of charts in Excel. We have the column charts, bar chart, line charts. We have area charts, pie charts, scattered plot, and then bubble charts and histogram. We have a whole lot of them. So we are not going to be looking at all of these, charts. You can always read them out. All right, later. So let's quickly check the column chart. So column charts are types of charts used to visualize data in vertical columns. Please take note, in vertical columns. So each column represents a category. Please take note, in column chart, each of the column here, each of these bars here represents a category. So we have categories here, down here are this series, and the height or length of the column correspond to the value of the data it represents. Please take note. So these are values in numbers like 0 million, 10 million, 20 million. So the value of data each of these categories present is usually placed, at the height, or is usually presented like the length of the column. Right. So column charts are particularly useful for comparing data across different categories. So these are categorical data. Like what I mean by categorical data is kind of group data. All right. For example, we have we may have male, and then we may have something like female, and then we have the height for each of these categories of gender. So let's say gender now is our category, and then we have their different ages. So those are values of the data that these groups, the gender we represent. All right. So the longer the bar, the higher the value of the data. Right. So those are for column chart. Now we also have for bar charts. All right. But you can see the orientation of these two charts. This is oriented horizontally, and then column charts is oriented vertically. All right. Now we also have what is called the line chart. So line chart is a graph where data points are connected by a straight line. So the data points are joined by a straight line. All right. Most times, if you are plotting with maybe your pencil and a graph book, right? So we have a point where we have the values horizontally. So in this case, we have values here. You can see we have numeric values. We have numeric values here. So intersection between here, this is x axis and this is y axis. All right. Now we have a point, we have a point. So you connect this with your ruler. But when you're using Excel, automatically Excel has a way of, automating stuff for you. So you don't have to start, clicking your mouse and dragging it here. And so the horizontal axis represents time or categories, while the vertical axis represents numerical, right, values. Now we also have what's called a pie chart. It's a circular graph divided into sections where each sector, each of them here, represents a portion of the whole. Please take note, a portion of the whole, and is usually summed up to 100%. In most cases, 100%. That's if it's in percentage. So the size of each sector is proportional to the value it presents in relation to the total. So that is it about pie chart. And I think we also have this scatter plot diagram. We call it a scatter plot. So it's a type of chart that displays individual data points, right, on two-dimensional graph, where each point represents the value of two variables. The position of each point on the graph is usually determined by its corresponding values on the horizontal and vertical axis. So once you have a point, for example, diameter in centimeters here, and then the height in meter, once you have a corresponding data point, all right, for example, we may have 4 here, and then we have corresponding value here. You put a point. So you have different scattered points generated here. All right, and then you pick a ruler, and then where these points usually condense, you draw a straight line across that, making sure that we have points at the two sides, right? Two sides of this straight line. Though this is general knowledge, all right, when it comes to statistics, all right, or in mathematics, general mathematics. All right, so if you have a knowledge of mathematics, it's not going to be an issue, right? So we're just looking at the overview of the possibilities that Excel can do, Microsoft Excel can do. So if you have data points in your Excel, you can actually use Excel to, plot a scatter diagram. Right, so scatter plots are useful for visualizing the relationship between two variables. Please take note, most times use it to find relationship between two variables, identifying patterns and, detecting outliers. All right, we tend to see how variables are strongly correlated. All right, maybe we are going to be looking at that actually, but that's not going to be what we are not supposed to be covering the statistic part of that, right, in the data analysis class. But if it's something that you really want to learn, we can actually create a different session for that, where we begin to talk about correlation and regression. But that's higher up there in machine learning. It's not part of the basic data analysis that we are looking at. All right, for those going into machine learning, artificial intelligence, this topic is very important. Correlation, relation, regression, scattered plot diagrams. All right. Now we also have another one called a histogram. So it is a type of chart that represents the distribution of numerical data by dividing it in intervals called bins and displaying the frequency. So you may not really understand all this English I'm speaking, right? So it's best understood when we start working with data. Right? These are the basic ones we'll be looking at, and even these ones we are not going to be covering all of them. So there is materials attached to these lectures where you can download and begin to practice on some of these types of Excel charts we have. And data is also provided. Excel file is provided. So download it to your system and keep playing around with it. Right. So let's get into practice to see how to apply some of these types of charts, and that's what you're going to be doing in the next lecture. Right, so thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this class. So see you next time.